In this tutorial, ang pag-uusapan natin is yung mga important functions sa Microsoft Excel. Ano ba yung mga typical na functions na ginagamit sa Microsoft Excel? So, yung first function na pag-uusapan natin is the average. So, let's say meron akong mga numbers na to. 15, 30, 40, 50, 17. And gusto ko makukuha kung ano yung average ng mga numbers na to. Simply type in equal average, open parenthesis, and then select all these numbers na gusto mong i-average. Then, type enter. So, ito na yung average ng mga numbers na ito. So, ito yung simplest way to use the average function. Now, kung gusto mong i-average yung dalawang numbers quickly, you can do so. So, type in equal average, open parenthesis, and put the two numbers na gusto mong i-average. So, that's 150. Now, if you want to take the average of the three numbers, you can type equal, then average, open parenthesis, and lagay mo lang yung tatlong numbers na gusto mong i-average. So, that would result to 200. So, in the next function na pag-uusapan natin is the sum function. Ngayon, yung sum function is nag-work katulad nito. So, halimbawa, gusto mong ipag-add yung dalawang numbers. So, 100 plus 200 is 300. So, the sum works the same way. If we want to add two numbers equal, so type in equal, then sum of the two numbers, 100 separated by comma, 200. So, that will result for 300. So, the same formula or the same answer dun sa manual addition. Let's say, for the same set of numbers, gusto natin makuha yung total sum nito mga numbers na to. So, type in equal, then sum, open parenthesis, and then select all these numbers. Then, makukuha na natin yung result ng total sum ng mga numbers na ito. So, the third function na pag-uusapan natin is the sum if function. So, ano ba yung nagagawa ng sum if function? So, first, let's compare it sa sum function. If our objective is to get the total of the total number of fruits, we can simply use the sum function. So, let's do that. Equal sum, open parenthesis, and get the sum of these numbers. So, that would be 295. But, what if ang objective natin is kunin lang yung sum ng isang specific fruit? Let's say apple. So, I'll put here fruit, and then gusto ko hanapin kung ilang apples meron sa ating table. So, I put apple. Then, let's use the sum if function. So, equal sum if, open parenthesis, select the range. So, for the range, I'll select the fruits. Then, I'll type comma. For the criteria, ano ba yung fruit na gusto kong malaman yung total quantity or your total number? So, that would be the apple. Then, comma. For the sum range, I'll select these numbers because ito yung gusto kong i-total. Then, upon hitting enter, mag-result sa 70 apples. Because, meron tayong dalawang apples sa ating table. That's 20 and 50 apples. Total of 70 apples. If we wish to find the total number of bananas, we can replace this with the banana and automatic, i-compute siya ng sum if function. So, there's 75 bananas in our table because the first one is 50, the second one is 10, so that's 60, and the third one is 15, that's 75. So, 75 yung ilalabas niya na result. So, that's basically how you use the sum if function. So the next function is the count function. So ano ba nagagawa ng count function? So if we type the count function, you'll notice na it says na the count function counts the number of cells in range that contains numbers. Ibig sabihin, if I select these cells, the count function will count these cells because yung mga cells na to contains numbers. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cells that contains numbers. So, bibilangin siya ng count function. And what if we count this range instead? So, let's try it. Equal count, open parenthesis, and we select these cells. You'll notice na hindi niya binilang yung mga cells na to because these cells does not contain numbers or they are not numbers. Even if we, let's say, we insert number here, you'll notice na hindi niya bibilangin yung cell na yon because this is still considered as text. Now, if we want to count these cells, regardless of they are numbers, they contain numbers, text, or punctuation, we can use the count a function. So, ang nagagawa naman ng count a function is binibilang niya yung mga cells na may values. Whether yung value niya is a number, a text, or a punctuation. So, let's try the count a function. Count a, parentheses, and then let's select these cells. You'll notice na the count a function counts all the cells because all these 8 cells contains values. Even if we change the cells to a number or a punctuation, ika-count pa rin yan ang count it function as long as may value yung cell. Now, if we try to delete this number of cells, let's try to delete 3 cells. Now, if you'll notice, hindi niya na binilang yung cell na ito because these cells does not contain any values. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cells that has values. Now, if we want to count the cells that has no value or the blank cells, we can use the count blank function. So the count blank function count the cells that are empty. So count blank function, then select the cells. As you can see, binilang niya yung mga cells na empty. That's 3 cells that has no value. So that's basically how you use the count a, and the count blank function. Yung next function natin is the countif function. So, parang another variation ng count function. So, let me just clear this. Balik lang natin dun sa first data natin. We can use the same example. So, countif function. So, yung countif function parang similar yung way of, yung similar siya dun sa sumif function. So, if we use the countif function, let's say, gusto natin alamin kung ilan yung apples. Okay, ilan yung apples dito sa list natin, ilan yung bananas, and so on. So we can do that using the countif function. So for the countif function, let's say I want to determine how many apples are there. So I'll input apple here, and then I'll type count if, open parenthesis, for the range, ito yung saselect kong range because this is where the countif will refer kung ano yung value na ilalagay natin dito. So, ito yung range ng fruits. Then, for the criteria, whatever value the cell has, hahanapin niya doon sa range natin. So, if we enter that, you'll notice na meron 2 apples sa ating list because that's itong apple na to, and then this. If we try to change this to grapes, to din ang grapes natin because there's 2 grapes here. Then if we change it to orange, you'll notice na isa lang yung orange natin. And as you'll notice na hindi siya case sensitive because here, hindi capitalize yung O natin compared to what's on the list. No? And last, for the banana, as you can see, bibilangin niya yung banana na nandun sa ating list. So that's basically how the countif function works. So yung next na pag-uusapan natin is the concatenate function. So meron ako dito ng dalawang column, that's first name and the last name. And then let's say gusto nating ipag-combine yung first name and last name so we can have the full name. So we can do that using the concatenate function. So let's type in equal concatenate. Then we select the first name as the first text and the second name or the last name as the second text. If we hit enter, the concatenate function connects the first name and the last name. So yun yung basically yung ginagawa ng concatenate function. So we can drag this down to apply the same formula dun sa iba pang names. So basically, ganyan ang gagawin ng concatenate function. But as you'll notice, kailangan natin ng space in between. So we can also do that using the concatenate function. So let's type in equal concatenate, and then we select the first name as the first text. Then for the second text, we insert a space enclosed in double quotation mark. So open quotation mark, space, and close quotation mark. So that's our second text. So the third text, that would be the last name. So if we hit enter, yan, meron tayong space in between ng first name and then last name. So we can drag this down to apply the same formula dun sa iba pa nating names. So basically, that's how you use the concatenate function. So yung next function na alamin natin is the if function. So ibalik natin yung example natin kanina na mga fruits. That's, halimbawa, meron tayong banana, apple, lemon, and orange. And then let's say gusto nating malaman if this cell is an apple. So we can use the if function. So equal if, then we test, for the logical test, we test if cell C5 is an apple. If it's true, ito yung value na ilalabas niya. So if it's true, I want to give it a value of yes. Yes. Then if it's false, gusto ko ang maging result is no. Okay. So you'll notice that because based on the logical test, we want to test if this cell is an apple. Since it's not an apple, ang ni-return na sagot ni Excel is yung value if it's false. So we can drag this down and let's see if ano yung magiging result. Now, for the cell C6, because cell C6 is an apple, ang ilalabas na value ni Excel is yung value if the condition is true. So that's why ang nilabas niya dito is yes. Now, let's try another example. Let's use if function on a different case. So let's say I have here a number. And let's say among this number, you want to know alin dyan yung mga pasado or bagsak. So pagpalagay natin na yung passing score is 70%. So I can use the if function to be able to determine if these numbers pass the passing score. So I type in equals, then if, then for the logical test, if this cell is greater than or equal to 70, gusto kong ipakita ng Excel is pasado siya. If the logical test is false, ang gusto kong ipakita ng Excel is failed. Of course, we have to enclose this in the quotation because ano to mga text ito. So if we hit enter, ito yung lumabas na sagot. So fail yung ni-return ni Excel because 50 is not greater than 70. So we can drag this down until the bottom. So among these numbers, the 50, 10, and 60 are failed because they are not greater than or equal 70. Hindi nila na-satisfy yung logical test natin. While 80 and 100 passed because na-satisfy niya yung condition natin which is greater than or equal to 70. Now, we can also use if statement on calculation. No, we can perform calculation if the value is true and another calculation if the value is false. So let's try it. So let's say if 50 is greater than 70, say if it's greater than or equal to 70, let's multiply it. Let's multiply the 50 by 100. If not, if hindi niya na-satisfy yung logical test natin, just let's Excel return the 50. Show the 50. Okay. So since 50 is not greater than 70, ang ipapakita ng Excel na value is yung formula mo if the value is false. Which is, inequal lang natin siya doon sa cell C11. Now, if we drag this down, all of this ay gagayahin niya lang since hindi niya na-satisfy yung condition. But on these two items, you'll notice that since 80 is greater than 70, Excel will multiply the 80 by 100. So that would result to 8,000. And then for 100, that would result to 10,000. So that's basically how you use the if function. So yung next na pag-uusapan natin is the VLOOKUP function. So I have here the data. Meron ako nung name, meron akong age, email address, and the contact numbers. So let's say gusto kong hanapin yung information ni John Smith. Ang gusto ko, if nilagay ko dito yung name ni John Smith, mapapopulate yung age niya. Okay. Mapapopulate yung age niya, that's 30. Then mapapopulate yung kanyang email address, which is yung johnsmith@gmail.com. And then mapapopulate din yung contact number niya, which is 777-3123. So this is the name. So ang gusto ko, if ilagay ko dito yung name ni John Smith, automatically mapapopulate yung mga information na to. So we can use VLOOKUP for that. So let's try. So I'll copy the name of John Smith. Then let's say we want to know the age of John Smith. So let's use VLOOKUP, type in equal VLOOKUP, open parenthesis, and for the lookup value, I'll select John Smith because si John Smith, yung name, yung gusto nating hanapin dito sa ating table or sa ating data. So I'll select the name, whatever value ng cell nito, yun yung hahanapin niya on this table. So I'll select John Smith or the cell, this cell. Then comma, for the table array, I'll select all the values in our table. So because ito yung paghahanapan natin ng information eh. Okay? Then for the comma, for the column index, ang kailangan lang dito is anong column? Saang column mo hahanapin yung information natin? Since we're concerned about yung age ni John Smith, hahanapin natin siya dito sa column na to, which is on the second column nung selected array natin. This is the selected array and nasa second column yung age. Because the first column is the name, second column is the age, third column is the email address, and the fourth column is the contact number. So I'll choose the second column. So I put here 2. Then for the range lookup, we have two options, true or false. So we like to find or to look for the exact match. So I'll put the false. I'll choose the false for the exact match. And then we hit enter. As you can see, na-populate yung age ni John Smith. So we can try another example. So equals v lookup, open parenthesis, and we select John Smith. Then for the table array, we select all this information. Then for the column index, we select the third column. So we put here 3. For the range lookup, we select false. So, yan, automatically mapopopulate yung email address ni John Smith. So, let's try another one para sa contact information. VLOOKUP, open parenthesis, and lookup value is still the name, John Smith. Then for the table array, let's select all this information. Then for the column index, let's select the fourth column. So I'll put here 4. Then let's type in false for the exact match. And that's it. We have the complete information of John Smith. Automatically populated dito sa mga fields natin because we use the VLOOKUP function. Now, if we change this to a different name, let's say gusto natin hanapin yung information ni Sam Milby. So, let's type in Sam Milby and automatically mapopopulate yung information ni Sam Milby based sa kung anong information na indicated dun sa ating table. So, that's basically how you use the VLOOKUP function. The next function that we're gonna talk about is the drop-down list. Actually, the drop-down list somewhat complements the VLOOKUP function. It's not actually a function, but a feature in Microsoft Excel. So, for the drop-down list, let's say for the name, ayaw mong i-manually type yung name because baka mamaya mamali ka ng spelling or para sigurado ka na yung information na nandito is nandoon sa yung table. So we can use the drop-down list to do that. So para yung mga names, you can just pull from the drop-down list and then mapopopulate na information na kailangan mo. So to create a drop-down list, let's select the cell where you want to add the drop-down list. So let's select this cell and then let's go to data. Then on the data validation, let's select the drop-down. Then select the data validation. Now for this drop-down list, let's select list. And for the source, we can select this icon and select all the names in our table. So we hit enter and then click OK. So upon hitting enter, yeah, may lalabas dito na icon or drop-down icon na you can click. As you can see, lahat ng mga names na sinelect natin is na-populate dito sa drop-down list. So let's say you want to determine the information of Miguel de los Santos. So you can do so you can select it and automatically mapopopulate yung information uh, related to this name. Let's try another one. Let's say gusto natin alamin yung information ni Angelica Craig. So those information will automatically populated on these cells because we use VLOOKUP function previously on these cells. While you can easily select the names on this cell because we use the drop-down list. And that's it for this video. I hope nakapagbigay ako ng value sa iyo. Ayan, somewhat natulungan kita sa video na to. And if gusto mo yung mga ganitong tutorial, please subscribe to the channel para hindi mo ma-miss yung mga uploads natin. That's it. See you on the next video.